Dr. Alexander, how can we recognize an unhealthy relationship?
I think there are several signs. I think often, the part of abuse is easily recognizable, right? If someone does not feel comfortable in the relationship, if they can't be themselves, I think there are certain things like someone else trying to control what one does, who they're around, what they wear, things like that are clearly signs of unhealthy relationship. I think most of us have that sense when we're not fulfilled, right? And so we're the first person. Sometimes it takes us time to realize,
We
even
ignore
though
those
others,
signs, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think the feeling is there, and then, like I said, verbally abusing someone, financially abusing someone,
That's a good one.
Are all signs that probably isn't a relationship for you.
Right. So I hear you saying you notice if the person is being like too controlling, things like that, whether it's financially in any type of way, you can kind of feel it and kind of go with your intuition.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I respect that. What does a healthy relationship look like? What does that look like to you?
Well, I'm going to say there has to be respect. I think respect is the key to just about every relationship, right? If you respect someone, the other things come, the important things like trust, being honest, being able to be yourself with someone.
Right.
Because
if someone try to change you, like you said, for as like what you're wearing and things like that, then
Yeah. And I also think it's different for different people. I've seen women, with in relationships, and there's things that go on that they share with me that I would not necessarily feel comfortable with. It wouldn't be healthy for me, right?
So whatever works
but that
for
doesn't
you.
mean that it's not good or healthy for them. And I think oftentimes human beings just see things through the lens that through our experiences, right? Through our culture, and we judge people that way, and what is or what is not good or healthy or happy or whatever. And I think a lot of times others try to get in the way of what could be a healthy relationship for the people in it,
Right.
because that's not how they would function.
Right.
And we have to remember that we're all individuals, and we all have different needs and things that are important to us and things that we value. So an unhealthy relationship for me might be healthy for you.
I understand what you're saying. And that's crazy because I always say that whatever works for somebody else might not work for you. Mm-hmm. So I totally agree with what you're saying with that. So do you think that someone's childhood can affect their relationship with someone?
I completely believe that. And I think not only can our childhood experiences affect how we relate to others, but also how we relate to ourselves.
Okay.
And I'll go even further and say, I believe that not only our own childhood affects how we interact with other human beings and the relationships that we have, but also I think our parents' childhood and our parents' childhood. Going back for generations, I believe those childhood experiences obviously affect the way we move through life after they happen. And that's part of what my focus is on in terms of research, and what I really value and what I'm interested in is trauma being passed on through generations, collectively, culturally, historically, all those things. And I think, yes, absolutely, how we move in this world as children, what happens to us, trust, right? What we value, those things matter. And that's what we bring to relationships through our experiences. And I think a lot of things that happen in childhood that we think we've dealt with, we have not. True. So they manifest in those closer relationships that we have with people,
Right. Mm-hmm. I agree with that, because I know one of the episodes we talked about growing up and some men being taught that they shouldn't show emotions, they should be strong and things like that. So that can kind of affect the relationship as well.
Absolutely.
You were raised in that type of environment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Knowing one's self and what one values in life, in other people, in relationships is really important. to be successful in a relationship. And I was looking for a better word because I don't even know what successful relationships are necessarily. My definition, again, is not going to be somebody else's definition of that. So let's say healthy relationships, because that's the word you've been using, and that's the topic. Yeah, it's important to know yourself. And that's what I tell my students when they, young people they're very dramatic, first of all.
The young.
Yes. Secondly, whenever they break up with someone or someone breaks up with a relationship ends, I hear a lot of them saying, I wasted 2 weeks of my time or 2 years, however long it is, however long the relationship lasted. And I say, you didn't waste your time. You found out something about you. And that's really what relationships teach us, what we're willing to tolerate, what we're willing to put up with, what we value, how we relate to other people, and if we go deeper, why we relate to people that way. So for me, it's never a waste of time. In fact, every relationship, I think, prepares us for the relationships of the future, whether it be, a romantic relationship, a platonic relationship, or a professional relationship.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because some people don't look at it like that as an experience. They always think about what this person did wrong. And it's like, maybe you need to realize maybe your mistakes in a relationship, or maybe things that you can work on better in a relationship.
I think everybody makes mistakes. Everybody is going to make mistakes in relationships. I don't care if you've been married, 10 times or that wasn't the same you, right? You're not with the same person. And the circumstances are different. So there's always a learning curve. And I believe there's also some toxicity in just about every relationship. The thing is, does it get to a level where it's harmful or unhealthy? And if it does, then perhaps somebody might want to take a look at, therapy or themselves, or getting out of the relationship.
Okay, so I hear you saying therapy. Why do you think therapy is so frowned upon nowadays, especially in the Black community?
Well, I think nowadays it's actually less frowned upon.
Really?
I think so.
Getting better?
I think so, because when you look at Taraji Henson, she has a foundation. She talks a lot about mental health. Take a look at Serena Williams, Naomi Osaka. All these women have been open about their mental health issues and about seeking therapy. And so I think it's less taboo in general, but also I think it's less taboo in the Black community because of those people who are willing. I've seen, professional athletes, football players and stuff come out, talk about their mental health issues. But we see it and it's normalized now. It's like anything else in society. I think when we take the shame and how that happens, it has to be a movement, right? It has to be a movement, right? It can't just be, me over here talking about, mental health. And also I think how we affect people. I've talked to my students about therapy, and a lot of them are just like, yeah, therapy. Yeah, I've been, and it's not a big deal to that generation of people. It is like normal, like it's maintenance for yourself. Mm-hmm. And I remember like 20 years ago or so when I was talking about therapy, I would say I've been in therapy. And students would ask me, have you been in therapy? Because it's scary. It's scary to go into a place.
Not knowing.
Yes. And reveal who you truly are to someone else that you don't know. That vulnerability and trust is a big thing in the Black community, as is, I heard you say earlier, you got to be strong. And so I start to break that down. Like, what is strength? What does that look like to you? What is strong? Let's define that before we say we have to be that and that therapy is not that. Because I think it really takes a strong person, in my definition of strength, to go through therapy.
Okay.
Because if you are honest and you are there to do work, you will be hurt. You will be emotionally distressed at times. You will be surprised. You will be angered. And it's just a lot to go through to know who you truly are.
And that scares people.
It scares people because, it scares me. but it's worth it. And I can say that on the other side, and I don't even know if there is the other side, because, therapy is a lifelong thing. It could be. Let me say that. Right. The option is there. But once one gets through the fear of vulnerability or exposure or whatever we think it's going to bring us, it's been, for me, an amazing experience. And I'm very glad that I did it. I want to continue to evolve as a human being. I want to be, as they say, the best version of myself.
Right.
And that doesn't come without some soul searching, some introspection, some pain. And that's the work that has to get done. It's just like working your body out physically.
Right.
It's painful. You go through, exercises that you've never done before, and hurting muscles, that you didn't know you had. But on the other side of that is health. It's what you want to look like and feel like, and live like. So,
right.
Yeah.
And I hear you saying just having people, like famous people, or coming out and saying, hey, this is what I've done. And then some people are looking like, wow, she did it, he did it. I can do it too.
Right.
Right. And we watch shows like Sopranos, you saw that they were getting therapy and things like that. And it's normalized because, he was in a mafia. So, things like that, people can look at it like normal people do therapy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have to normalize it. So,
yeah, I like that. Normalize it.
Yeah, I agree with that. So how can we get help for our loved one that's going through a mental health crisis, for it's like suicidal thoughts, post-traumatic stress disorder, or just feeling down, depression? How can we get someone help, and how can we deal with them going through those emotions?
There are hotlines like the National Suicide Prevention. I think it's called the Lifeline now, not Hotline, which I really like. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. There's 988.
That number, we'll put it on the screen.
Okay. There's 988, which people can dial for. It's like the 911 for mental health.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
We also have the crisis line.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's also what I used to do for my weekend job a few years back, was work at the Walk-In Crisis Center over on the South Side, Mercy Behavioral. And I worked there on Saturdays and Sundays. And so that is an option also. I think it's you can find help. But I think here's for me, the most important thing. Does that person want help? You can do everything for them. Or, anyone can do everything for them. But if they don't truly believe anything is wrong, and I'm talking about in a conscious state of,
Right.
I'm not talking about they're psychotic or, delusional or things like that. But there's mental institutions and hospitals and things like that, which is scary also. And it's scary to think of a loved one being there. But if they are truly in danger of harming themselves or someone else, that is the best place. And a lot of times that we talked about the Black community, we don't trust systems. We don't trust those entities to actually care for us and our loved ones. So that's another obstacle, I think, in terms of if we're seeking help for our loved ones and we're people of color, there's just a inherent and not because there's no reason,
right?
Mistrust of systems, particularly we're talking about healthcare and
right, just people in authority.
Right.
Yeah. I love that you say that because I dealt with someone and I didn't feel like they wanted help. You can do everything that you can possibly do on your end as a friend, as a significant other, but if they don't want the help, it's not going to happen.
It is.
You can say, hey, well, maybe you should try this. If they don't go, what else are you going to do? So at what point do you just realize this is detrimental to my health? Like, when do you realize like maybe I should just step away from this situation?
Of course, that's different for everyone, right? Our level of tolerance of what we will put up with or what we think we're putting up with varies from person to person. I think one thing that we might notice about ourselves is that person is not prioritized in our life. Yeah, I'm gonna just go out with my girls. I'm not gonna go, hang out with him or her or do whatever. I think when they lose that very special space in your life where you're like, giving up time with others to be with them, and now you're like kind of wishing they weren't around. I think that's one telltale sign is not prioritizing that other person or other people. Like I said, I think relationships go through changes, and we go through twists and turns, and we go through bad times. But I think when something lingers or there's just something telling you that maybe it's time to move on, and people probably leave people that they've been in long-term relationships with multiple times. And just because they haven't physically left that relationship doesn't mean they haven't emotionally left that relationship. So I think a lot of times we exit emotionally before we actually physically exit, because we need time to process what's happening, to make sure and check ourselves and make sure we're, on point about what we're doing. And of course, people go to therapy, couples therapy, and sometimes those things can be resolved if they're willing to do the work. But I think it's different for everyone, but we sense that something just, is different, and it's time to go.
Right. So pay attention to your intuition. And I'm not saying just leave someone because they're going through something. I'm just saying personally, in my experiences, you try to do the best that you can possibly do for that person, and then what starts to bring stress and you start to not feel like yourself, that's when, I notice like this is maybe too much for me.
Yeah. And it's funny because you're speaking about something that's currently going on in my life. It's a different type of relationship because it's my relationship with my job that I've had for almost 3 decades. Okay. I recently submitted my resignation, and I'm discovering that I really identified a lot professionally with that particular district. And it's not like I work with things. I work with human beings. So, of course, it's natural that I would be attached, but I'm talking about my own identity of myself, how I see me professionally. And it's difficult. It's hard to leave, like, any relationship,
In a work relationship.
Yeah. And I think about retirement. And a lot of men in particular don't want to retire because they feel like then they're not men. That's not how they were socialized. That's not how they were taught to be, right? Working, taking care of your family,
being a provider.
Right, those things. So those are relationships as well, and they can become toxic, which is, for me, one of the reasons that I'm leaving my job.
I love how you compared that, your job relationship to a regular, personal relationship.
They affect us, especially somebody like me who's been in the same, I've been a classroom teacher and an elementary counselor and a high school counselor in that district, but it's the same district. I had students who I have now, I had their parents as my students. So it's very difficult. And I had to think of, how am I going to move without this relationship now?
That's how we feel in the personal relationship.
Absolutely.
I love
that. We need to give, and I think for any relationship. And so I am also, while I'm talking to you and your audience, I'm also talking to myself and saying, one of the things I think we don't do whenever we end a relationship or a relationship ends is give ourselves permission and time to grieve that loss. It's gone. It's different. And it hurts. It's painful. often, and we just kind of like pick up and move on. I was just talking to a colleague the other day, and he was saying his ex had contacted him, and I said, "Oh, have you seen her lately or talked to her?" And he was like, "No, I cut you off the neck and then I'm done." And I was like, "That's harsh." He said, "But it's survival for me. Like that's what I have to do."
For him.
Right. And I was like, "Okay."
Right, because sometimes you got to cut ties, because if you keep ripping off that Band-Aid,
right. I get it. I understand it, but I don't know that I could do that. But I mean, I respect it. That's what you have to do to keep yourself okay, and to,
protect
move
your
on.
feelings.
Right. So,
and I agree with you when you're saying that take that time to grieve in a relationship. That's so important to me, because with me, in every relationship I've been in, I take time to heal. I don't move on right directly after that. Some people can do that. I have friends who are like, I'm like, I can't. I have to get myself together, because I actually had feelings and love for that person. No matter what they did to me, I still have to heal from that.
Yeah.
And then I feel like if you're not fully healed, you go on to someone else, then you're bringing bad, toxic situations into the next relationship. And that's not fair to that person.
Or to yourself. Yeah. It's not. And I think that's a piece that we often miss. People do often jump into the next relationship and see that, again, I need a relationship with me more than I need a relationship with anybody else.
Okay,
I need to be able to accept who I am and where I'm at. And those, if somebody left you or broke up with you, that's a form of rejection, right? Or it could be interpreted. Let me say it that way. It could be interpreted as a form of rejection. That's probably how I would interpret it is, okay, what's wrong with me? So I need to love on me. I need to rediscover who I am after that relationship, right? Because I'm not the same after the relationship as I was when I got into it. There's had to be something that happened in life, in the relationship, in time, that has affected me and caused me hopefully to grow and evolve, or maybe to be hurt and to shrink and to, go back into old habits or whatever, Right. So, the relationship, grieving the relationship, the loss, and also getting reconnected to oneself is, I think, really important.
I love that, because we got to get to know ourselves before we can move on to anything. You know?
And we're so used to being in that relationship and seeing things possibly through the other person's eyes or through their lens of what they think is good or not good. So we have to see ourselves, like I have to see myself outside of the Penn Hill School District as a professional person. I've got to see myself outside of relationships that no longer serve me. And when I say serve me, I don't mean in some type of unbalanced or like I'm the person who needs to be served. I'm saying, this just ain't working.
It's just not for you anymore.
Yeah.
So what advice do you have for someone that is going through a breakup and, they're trying to heal? What advice would you give to them, whether it be a man or a woman?
The very same.
Same thing.
Grieving. Like, allow yourself to feel what you feel.
Because sometimes feeling pain is how we need to feel that.
I think getting away from people who try to tell you how to feel or how to move, and they may be very well-meaning. Our closest friends sometimes are the people who do us the most damage. You know what he did to you. You know what happened. Why are you worried about that? Why are you worried about him? Why are you, and that is not, for me, helpful. And I think for a lot of people, it's not helpful. It I think engenders some level of anger and frustration. And I'm not saying that people can't be angry. You can be angry, but to carry that,
that's the thing.
That's the thing. Yes, that person hurt me. That person did this. That person did that. I'm angry. But to constantly be told that you should be angry and, and not let go of it.
Right, because where does that lead you? It makes you want to continue being angry.
Yeah. And you're bitter. And then who gonna want to be with, first of all, an angry person? Like, you're always angry, know? And then to take that out possibly on others that you're in relationship with is also
family and friends.
a dangerous thing. Yeah.
Right. I think for me, when I'm giving advice to my friends or family members that's going through a breakup, I try to speak positivity into them, remind them who they are, let them know you are awesome. Try to stay positive with them instead of reminding them of the bad things happen in their relationship. Yeah. So
and
I think
getting to
uplifting
know,
your friends is very important.
And that's another part, I think, of healing is relying on your system, whether it be family, sisters, brothers, cousins, co-workers, whatever, lean on those folks because they love you and they want to be there for you. And it just helps us to, again, reconnect with ourselves. Like, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but sometimes people give up things that they like or that they, to eat or to do, go bowling, whatever, because that partner that they're with doesn't necessarily enjoy that the same way. Yeah. And so I think reconnecting with the things that you as an individual like to do is important also to move on. And it's important to get back to you and remember who you are and what you enjoy outside of that relationship. Just you and your relationship with you.
Right. And I think that's one positive thing about a breakup for me is like you said, getting to know yourself. I feel like this is the best time for me, just being single, learning myself. I'm just doing what I want to do. Courtney has spent so much time on just helping other people out, being there for them. Right now, it just feels so good.
Yeah, it does. And I try to tell my students that, but I think here's the thing. Society really puts a high value on being in a relationship, and a romantic relationship, I think. Relationship goals and Black love, and I'm not mad at any of that. Right. But sometimes we get lost in that romantic love and relationship, and we forget about who the most important person in our life is, right? Which is ourselves. Right. So I think there's a lot of societal pressure also to kind of be in relationships, and which oftentimes takes us away from ourselves unless we're really, really well grounded in who we are. We become, and I guess maybe entrenched in the relationship and what the relationship is. Like it's us together. And that's too much.
Start to live in a world that only you two exist.
Right. So. Yeah. And that to me is unhealthy. Yes. Every moment, everything has to be with that one other person is insane to me, but it's also just unhealthy, I think, in terms of relationships.
Yeah, because you need relationships with other people, like your friends and loved ones, things like that. You can't just base your life on just one person. It's not, like you said, healthy for you or the other person.
At all. And I've seen people, when we're talking about relationships, like that with their children. Like, oh, I live for my children. Oh, my God, I don't know what I would do. How is that fair to your child who's going to grow up, become independent, hopefully, and go on with their life? You see what I'm saying? Right. So I think a lot of our needs are fulfilled in unhealthy relationships.
I love that.
And we don't know it.
Sometimes we do. And we don't want to believe it.
Sometimes we do and we don't care.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think relationships can almost be like a something that stops us from, like a distraction from ourselves.
Right. And I think that's why in most cases, most females boss up after a relationship. Is because they're getting to know themselves and are realizing, okay, I got to focus on me. And then they start to go hard on what they love, what they enjoy. Yes. Because they spent so much time and effort into that relationship.
And the same whenever kids grow up, and they leave and have their own lives and their own families and things like that, their own spaces. That's another part of relationship lives that, right, we have to grieve that. And again, my older daughter, she moved out several years ago. The younger one is a senior in college, but she has her apartment, off campus.
Daughter in college. Look at you looking good over there talking about a daughter in college.
Wait. Now, the older one is 12 years older than the younger one. So,
wow. You look awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm learning my relationship with myself to not come back with a negative comment about me and just say thankful and be grateful to people. See something good in me.
You're not realizing that. Like,
yeah.
Okay. You're like, it's not a big thing to you. You're like, okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a lot. And I think that is another part of relationships. The younger one, my younger daughter, she'll be moving out soon. Mm-hmm. And I think about, well, what will that look like for me? Because I'm grieving her childhood, which is great because she's doing what she wants to do. She's fulfilling her purpose and she's enjoying life. But still, that's a part of me that's lost that I will never get back. So I just want to like make that space for people to understand that it's all types of relationships that affect us and how we move in this world, and that we're allowed to feel badly about something ending that we valued. Right. Now, the thing is, you feel badly for some time, and then you have to move forward. Right. I can't
live your life.
Yeah, I can't stay in the. I'm so sad my babies are grown. I mean, I knew they were going to be grown when I had them. Right. So
but you don't think about that. Yet.
No, not at all, not at all. But there's all types of things that we go through as human beings, and again in relationship. And I just think it's important to acknowledge those changes.
Different relationships.
Yeah.
I love that. So do you think there's a psychological issue with someone that cannot be in a monogamous relationship, whether it's a man or a female?
I'm going to say there could be, but there also could be psychological issues with people who can be in monogamous relationships.
Okay.
I don't think that particular characteristic is necessarily a bad thing if you're in relationship with others who don't want to be monogamous. I think the problem comes when we're not honest with ourselves.
That's what I was going to say. Okay.
And then honest with those.
People.
That's right. I don't think that piece has much to do with psychology, generally speaking. Now, if we delve into an individual who, always saw, let's say, his mom cheating on his dad, or perhaps, those things affect the way we view the relationship or the way we view relationships and ourselves. But I wouldn't say that in itself indicates any psychological issues, or mental health issues or things like that. I think those are choices. I think there's all types of relationships that people can be in. I think it's not going to be healthy if you're lying about something, first of all. The lying is unhealthy regardless of what type of relationship it is, right?
Right.
So that's the problem is people, and sometimes people cannot be honest because, let's say somebody who's gay and they don't want people to know that. And sometimes we just aren't aware that there's options, to be honest. Like, hey, I think I actually believe, and I've grown into this belief, that perhaps there isn't just one person for me. Let me say it that way. I think I get stimulation because every even, say, semi-romantic relationship does not necessarily involve sex. And I think I think that's a big thing for people when we talk about being faithful and being, because there's emotional cheating also, right? There's emotional unfaithfulness. But I think the physical piece is really important for most people. And I think we've been socialized to focus on that. When I'm not even sure if we are by nature supposed to just fall in love with somebody when we're like in high school and then marry that person and stay married and in love with them forever. Like that one person might not fulfill all of our needs. Wow. I seek intellectual stimulation, me individually. I want somebody I can have conversations with. I want somebody I can think deeply with who challenges me about who I am and what I believe. Who's aware of events going on in the world.
You can have a conversation.
Yeah, sapiosexual. Someone who, enjoys that. Like, and And I also think that there's other things, maybe I like to, I don't know, make candles or something, or cook or whatever. What if there's somebody else who likes to do that and can show me new ways to make candles or something else to cook or whatever? I mean, I just don't feel like being limited because that's what society tells me I'm supposed to be is healthy, right? Now, if I want to do that, yes, all for it. You know what I'm saying? But we have all just been socialized to believe, and like I was saying before, relationship goals and, we're, so in love and that's great. But that's not how everyone functions.
It doesn't work for everybody.
It doesn't work for everyone. So when we talked about, well, what's an unhealthy relationship look like? Like one of the first questions you asked, well, it looks like you're not being you. It looks like you're not being true to who you are.
Wow.
And it looks like you're choosing people who don't care that you're not being true to who you are. You see what I'm saying? So there's so many layers and so many things that happen in relationship. And that is why it is vitally important to be honest with us, to know who we are as individuals and not rely on society or what we think we're supposed to do or who we think we're supposed to be. And this is, again, a movement I'm going through in my own life. So it's pretty significant to me in this moment, but also just being able to share that with other people, with young people who I'm like, you are young. Why do you want to be with one person? And but if that's what they want, that's what they want.
Right.
I'm not mad at it. I just think there's other ways to see things and other ways to perceive.
So with you saying all that, do you believe that's why some people cheat?
What's why some people cheat? Because the societal pressures.
What you're saying is, okay, there might be someone that could provide this for you, like you said, intellectual conversations and things like that. And then there might be someone that can provide a physical feeling and someone that you could just talk to in a, friendly manner, or someone that you could look at as a friend.
I think so. I think that's a possibility. Absolutely. I think also there's something, with the relationship, if you're not being honest, like we said a few minutes ago, with who you are, you can't be honest with them. You can't.
Okay.
Because you don't even have the truth.
You don't
right?
even know who you are.
Right. Right. So seeking who you are in other people is going to be a problem. So I guess what I'm maybe challenging folks to think about or consider is defining what healthy is. Because I know a lot of people who've been married for a long time, and a lot of them seem to have good relationships and they're happy and fulfilled. But what if they actually allowed themselves to think about someone else or another way of existing? It shouldn't be harmful to someone else. I'm not saying that. I'm saying most of us are walking around here pretending to be someone. And that is the unhealthy relationship. We're afraid we're afraid to say what we think, or I want to go and have sex at, whatever, and with multiple people, because women are then judged more harshly than men.
Right. And not to cut you off, and this is the reason why I created the Naked Truth, because those taboo topics that are frowned upon, because I'm a woman and I'm speaking about intimacy, some people can look at it like, wow, who is she to be talking that way as a woman? And it's like, this is what the Naked Truth is about, for women to stand on what they're saying and feel comfortable. It's a safe place.
Yeah. And I had perception is reality, right? Whatever people perceive to be the truth, that is their truth. That's their reality. I had a situation on social media a few weeks ago that's something I posted, and then a young man commented on it. He thought it was disrespectful to Black women. And it was a video about voting. And it was strippers. It said, "Get your booty to the pole."
Okay.
And I thought it was a really great way to remind people to vote, right? So I don't really go back and forth with people on social media. I'm not going to spend my time that way.
Because everybody has their own opinion.
If I don't know you, right? But I can understand where he was coming from, but I also want to say that women are in control of their own bodies, and they chose to appear in that video. They choose to be strippers, and I fully support that. I mean, I support sex workers. If that's what you want to do, I'd like to be regulated. You know what I mean? But the thing is, women came up out of that, you know, like in the, I guess, 60s and 70s when there was the pimp who ran everything, right? And women started taking control of the business part and therefore taking control of their own bodies. Right. So I feel like if you're a prostitute, a stripper, or whatever, that's your body, that's your choice. And who am I to say that's disrespectful of you to your body? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and to someone to flip your positive message, it's like, that's not where I was going with it.
Well, I mean, but having grace to people who might not be, and I say I'm progressive, I'm extremely that way, especially for someone my age, you know, because people be looking at me like, where did you come from? But I've had a lot of experiences, obviously education, and I'd like to think that I'm accepting of humanity, right? Regardless of what package they come in or the experiences that they've had, it's my desire to love and support that, right? And not what they do or how they look or things like that. So.
And I respect the fact that you even looked at it on his point of view. Like, okay, I see where you're coming from, too. Because sometimes I could say something, and I could see how I'm looking at the situation. Then when somebody else responds, I'm like, okay, I can see where you're coming from.
And that's what helps us to grow. Exactly.
Because the conversation started.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I've had that perspective before. And I remember talking to a friend, a male friend, several years ago, and it was during the pandemic. Okay. And I'm like, why are these people posting videos of strippers being at their house or wherever? Right. And I'm like thinking, because y'all got people gathered there, first of all. Supposed to be there. Yeah. But then, you know, why are these women, you know, taking money to do? And he was like, well, maybe that's what they want to do. Right. You know, so that conversation caused me to start thinking differently. About autonomy, especially when it comes to women, particularly Black women, because we've been stripped of it for so long in so many ways, going all the way back to enslavement, right? I mean, particularly there. Right. So yeah, it has to start somewhere, right? And so if that young man, maybe he still feels very strongly and the way he feels about that, and I respect it. You know, I don't respect name calling and other things like that. Right. That's when I have to. From. Right.
Why do you think some women tolerate cheating in a relationship?
May I ask a question back?
Yeah, go.
Why did you specify women?
Okay, let's change it around. Why do you think that some women and men tolerate cheating in a relationship?
I think there can be a lot of reasons. I think they might not value themselves. I think some people think, I remember hearing a young woman speak about marrying an NBA player. And she was saying, like, I would expect him to cheat, you know, because he's out on the road and doing, you know, things like that. So some people, the physical part, right. And the physical part isn't the primary focus of that relationship, right? Or yeah. I think oftentimes it is because they can't see themselves without that person or outside of that relationship. And that's the scary part. And again, so it all goes back to that relationship with yourself, right? Mm-hmm. If you know yourself, if you are comfortable with yourself, and there's a lot of things in life that I'm going to embark on that I've never done before, you know, in my 50s. And I'm scared and I'm nervous about things, but I'm going to do it. Gosh, I'm sorry. I'm going to do these things because I want to be a better me. Right. You see what I'm saying? And to see ourselves outside of a cheating relationship, or, you know, I saw my dad or my mom cheat, or, you know, one of my friends who passed away, may he rest in peace. He told me, I am the only man I know who never cheated on a woman. And I was thinking, but he lived in secret and in fear. And he was proud of that fact. And I understand that. And I'm proud for him. I think we almost expect it in life, especially when we're talking about gender differences. Like women don't cheat, men cheat. No, women cheat. Women cheat just as much as men.
Right. And I agree with that. I guess I specified women because I feel like nowadays, I feel like a lot of women tolerate cheating because of the materialistic things in a relationship.
So they're gaining.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So they'll, like someone mentioned on Facebook, or like, are you guys okay with crying in the bins? Because someone's treating you a certain way, you're okay because they're providing you with materialistic things.
But if that's what that person values, who's to say? You see what I'm saying? How we just jump into that space of judgment based on what we've been taught, how society sees things, right? And then there could be all types of twists and turns in that. Like, I value material things, so therefore I'm willing to put up with this, that, and the third because this is what I want. This is more important to me, right? There could be that piece of I value stability. Like, we never had no money. The lights was always cut off, for lack of paying the bill. We didn't have food in our refrigerator. So this is important to me.
So you just changed my view. Okay.
So I think we often, again, judge people and what things look like from our own lens and from our own perspective. That's how they want to live. That's how they want to live. Right. And why am I worried about it?
Right. That's
like,
true.
Don't I got my own relationship to worry about? Or,
that's true.
And I'm talking about not necessarily romantic, but, I got kids, I got a job, I got, currently. He said currently. About 50 days, I ain't gonna have no job. But yeah. And why do we, and I think social media does that a lot. I just really got on social media a couple years ago. I was real late to the party. And for good reason, because now I see and understand people, but we're judgy. Even though we say we're not, we are.
Right.
And we should be in certain ways for certain things like that we value. I'm like, no, I ain't letting that person near my child. Okay. We should judge those things. Right. But as far as other people's situations that have nothing to do with us, why would I waste energy on that?
Right. I think that's really big with society nowadays. I mean, even with me doing my podcast, I'll see people respond to something negative. I'm like, why would you take your time out of your day to respond and say something negative when this literally has nothing to do with you? It's like, why are people so worried about things that has nothing to do with them?
Relationship with self. That's what I believe it boils down to is. That's an excellent question, and I would actually use that in therapy. Well, I wouldn't say it quite that way. Share with me what you find fascinating or interesting about that situation. And that way we get to hear it. We hear it coming from ourselves when we're answering that question, right? And then it gives us something to reflect on later and try to figure that out.
Thank you so much for coming in, Dr. Alexander. I really
appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
No problem. So if we can end with something like an inspirational message to the folks out there in the audience.
I think the journey to self is a lifelong journey. I think that we need to be patient with ourselves and kind to ourselves on that journey. And most of all, I think we need to love ourselves through what we're going through, what we're dealing with, and understand that we are lovable and worthy. Right. You are worthy, no matter who you are, no matter what the situation is, no matter what you're going through, no matter where you come from, you are worthy.
You are worthy.
Period.
Period.
Period.